Picture a television villain so disturbing he's still showing up in nightmares decades later. And here's the part almost nobody believes the first time they hear it. Nobody ever auditioned for the role. There was no casting call, no script with his name in it, no actor hired to play him. A camera caught something nobody was supposed to see, and by the time anyone noticed, it was already too late to take it back. We'll get to him, and he's not even the strangest story on this list. Welcome back to the Throwback Network. Dynasty almost handed its most iconic role to 3 different Hollywood legends, including Elizabeth Taylor and Sophia Loren, before Joan Collins ever got the call. Dallas nearly gave J.R. Ewing, the man television loved to hate, to a completely different actor who turned the part down for being too mean. One campy Batman villain, meanwhile, burned through 3 separate actors in 3 seasons, all serious, award-caliber names, as if the network couldn't be bothered to keep the same guy under the makeup. 10 villains, 10 roles that almost went a completely different direction, and today we're digging into every one of them. Let's start at the bottom of the list. Number 10. Angela Channing, Falcon Crest. Jane Wyman spent 9 seasons running Falcon Crest as Angela Channing, a wine country matriarch who ruled her vineyard and her family with the same iron grip. And that performance turned her into one of primetime's great battle axes, right alongside Dallas's JR and Dynasty's Alexis. Here's where the story gets murky. For decades, a rumor has floated around that Barbara Stanwyck, one of old Hollywood's toughest leading ladies, was the network's actual first choice for Angela, with Wyman only stepping into the role after Stanwyck passed on it. Wyman herself admitted she'd heard that version of events, yet creator Earl Hamner Jr. has flatly called the rumor untrue, insisting the part was never offered to Stanwyck in the first place. Nobody outside the original production offices seems to know for certain which version is real, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes this one interesting, instead of a dead end. Repeated so many times over the decades, the story has become one of television's most persistent casting legends, one that plenty of people assume is settled fact, even though the person who actually created the show insists it never happened at all. Jane Wyman turned Angela Channing into a genre-defining villain either way. Whether Barbara Stanwyck ever came close to playing her first is a rumor that refuses to die, denial or not. Number 9. The Penguin, Batman. Burgess Meredith turned the Penguin into one of the signature villains of the campy 1966 Batman series, waddling around Gotham with a cigarette holder and a cackle that made him instantly recognizable to an entire generation of kids. Fan circles have passed down a different story for years, one that says Meredith wasn't the first name on the list. Producers reportedly wanted Spencer Tracy, a 2-time Academy Award winner, to play the Penguin instead, and Tracy was supposedly willing, with one condition attached. He wanted the Penguin to actually kill Batman by the end of the series. Network executives weren't about to end their hero show that way, and that's roughly where the offer, if it ever really happened exactly like that, fell apart, clearing the way for Meredith to step into the feathers instead. It's the kind of anecdote that's been repeated so often, it's practically part of the show's folklore at this point, even though nobody's tracked down an ironclad primary source confirming every detail. Batman fans have been telling this story to each other for half a century now, so treat it exactly like the piece of show lore it's become. A 2-time Oscar winner supposedly wanted to play a comic book villain on a network show, on one condition nobody was ever going to say yes to. Number 8. Wu-Fat, Hawaii Five-0. Wu-Fat spent over a decade as the recurring criminal mastermind on Hawaii Five-0, giving Jack Lord Steve McGarrett his signature nemesis and handing the show its most quoted line, the one where McGarrett orders his partner to book him. Kam Fong-chun actually auditioned for the role of Wu-Fat when the show was first casting, and he brought a resume no other actor in the room could match. 18 years as a real Honolulu police officer before he ever stepped in front of a camera. Producer Leonard Freeman looked at him and saw something else entirely, deciding Fong was better suited to play a hero than a villain, and cast him instead as Detective Chin Ho Kelly, a role he'd go on to hold for over 200 episodes across a decade of the series. Freeman's instinct turned out to be right. Fong's real police background gave Chin-Ho Kelly a lived-in authenticity the writers leaned on constantly, which meant audiences embraced him as one of the most trusted members of McGarrett's team. Wo Fat, meanwhile, went to actor Ki Diga, whose calm menace made him one of television's earliest recurring supervillains. The man who tried out to play the villain ended up as one of the show's most beloved good guys instead, and the role fit him so well that almost nobody remembers he auditioned for the other side entirely. Number 7. Lex Luthor, Smallville. Michael Rosenbaum's bald, magnetic take on Lex Luthor is still considered by plenty of longtime fans the best live-action version of the character ever put on screen. A young man watching himself slowly turn into the villain everybody already knows he's destined to become. Actor Zachary Levi had already auditioned for Clark Kent before Rosenbaum ever landed the part, and he impressed the show's creative team enough that they called him back to read for Lex instead. Believing so strongly that the role was his, Levi moved to Vancouver, where the show filmed, and shaved his head to look the part, only for the network to tell him afterward that the answer was no. Rosenbaum's own path to the role wasn't smooth either, and he's talked openly about it since. His first audition, by his own admission, wasn't taken seriously enough, which meant a second attempt was needed. This time with a fully mapped-out scene that finally convinced everyone in the room he was the guy. Somewhere in Vancouver, meanwhile, Zachary Levi was already bald with nowhere to go. A future star shaved his head and moved across the country for a role he never actually got. And the actor who eventually defined that villain almost blew his own shot at it too. Number 6. Mr. Freeze, Batman. Mr. Freeze menaced Gotham with an icy blast gun and a chilly grudge, and unlike most recurring villains, this one didn't just get one actor to define him. 3 completely different, serious Hollywood names ended up playing the exact same character across 3 separate seasons of the same show. George Sanders, an Oscar winner for All About Eve, played Mr. Freeze first, treating Batman as one of the last credits of his long career. Otto Preminger came next, the celebrated director behind films like Laura and Anatomy of a Murder, bringing a reputation for being difficult that reportedly followed him right onto the set. So much so that Adam West later called Preminger's attitude despicable in his own memoir. Eli Wallach then picked up the role for a third go-round, carrying on the same silver-skinned, wild-eyebrowed mad scientist look the previous 2 actors had established. Nobody scrapped the character or wrote him out after a scandal. The show just kept swapping in whichever big name happened to be available that season, and viewers went along with it like nothing had changed at all. 3 Hollywood heavyweights, 1 glowing blue villain, and somehow nobody at the network thought keeping the same actor mattered. Number 5. J.R. Ewing, Dallas. Larry Hagman's oil tycoon became the man television audiences loved to hate, a role so effective it produced one of the biggest cultural moments in the medium's history, when the entire country spent a summer asking who shot him. Hagman wasn't creator David Jacobs' first pick, though. Jacobs originally offered the role to actor Robert Foxworth, who turned it down flat, telling him he found the character too mean-spirited to spend a season playing. That single decision opened the door for Hagman, and he took the ruthlessness Foxworth had rejected and turned it into one of the most iconic performances in television history. Here's the twist that makes the story even better. Foxworth didn't walk away from primetime soaps entirely. Just a few years later, he landed the lead role of Chase Gioberti on Falcon Crest, essentially starring in the same kind of wine country, backstabbing drama he'd passed on when it came wrapped around a character he found too nasty to play. The actor who said no to becoming television's ultimate villain ended up starring in basically the same kind of show anyway, just on the other side of the family feud. Number 4. Al Swearengen, Deadwood. Ian McShane's foul-mouthed, calculating saloon owner is considered by plenty of critics one of the greatest anti-heroes ever put on television. A character who could deliver a Shakespearean monologue and a death threat in the same breath. Creator David Milch didn't write the part with McShane in mind at all. He wrote Al Swearengen specifically for Ed O'Neill, more than a decade into his run as Al Bundy on Married with Children, and Milch even had O'Neill screen test for the role, telling him directly that the part was his. HBO executives weren't willing to build a violent, profanity-laced Western drama around an actor the public still associated with a broad sitcom dad, and they overruled the casting before it ever got finalized. Milch's next target was Western star Powers Booth, fresh off recent hits like Tombstone and seemingly a natural fit for the genre. An illness prevented him from taking the role at that moment, though, which is how the part finally landed with Ian McShane. Booth didn't disappear from the show entirely either. He joined a few episodes later playing Cy Tolliver, Swearengen's rival saloon owner across the street. Television's most menacing barkeep almost had the same face as Al Bundy, and the actor who couldn't take the role because of illness ended up playing his rival instead. If you're new here, we do this every week, digging up the casting stories and almost forgotten near misses hiding behind the shows you already know. Hit subscribe if that sounds like your thing, because the next 3 names on this list are about as strange as it gets. Number 3. Rita Repulsa, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Rita Repulsa was the first major villain in the entire Power Rangers franchise, a cackling space witch who spent Saturday mornings sending giant monsters after a group of teenagers with attitude, and it genuinely took multiple performers just to build her into what audiences remember today. Voice actress Barbara Goodson didn't get the part smoothly. Her first audition leaned into a Wicked Witch of the West-style cackle, and a focus group decided it wasn't nearly scary enough, a verdict that got her fired from the role before she'd even really started. Frustration got the better of her during a later conversation with the casting directors, and the anger that crept into her voice at that moment turned out to be exactly the sound they'd been looking for all along, landing her the job for real this time. The physical performance behind Rita splits even further once you look closely. Japanese actress Machiko Soga played the character in the stock footage licensed from the original Swearengen series that Power Rangers was built on top of, while American actress Carla Perez took over the physical role for the television series itself, and a third performer, Julia Cortez, played Rita in the feature film shot around the same time as the show. Built out of 3 different productions and multiple performers, television's screechiest early 90s villain is really a patchwork character, and the version fans think they remember is an amalgam of all of them at once. Number 2. Alexis Carrington, Dynasty. Joan Collins's icy, scheming Alexis turned catfights into appointment television and became one of the defining characters of 1980s primetime, the kind of role that made her a household name almost overnight. What most viewers never realized at the time was just how far down the list Collins actually was. Producers wanted Sophia Loren first, and when Loren passed, they moved on to Elizabeth Taylor, then to Jessica Walter, holding out for Walter right up until roughly 2 weeks before shooting was scheduled to begin. Only after all 3 of those actresses turned the part down or proved unavailable did anyone finally call Joan Collins in to audition. Collins has told this story herself plenty of times over the years, and she leaned into it directly in 1983 when she won a Golden Globe for playing Alexis. Rather than deliver a standard thank you speech, she used the moment to thank Sophia Loren by name for turning the role down in the first place and clearing the path that eventually led to her. The actress who defined 1980s television villainy almost never got the phone call at all, and she made sure everyone in that room knew exactly how close it came. Number 1. Bob, Twin Peaks. B.O.B. stands as one of the most disturbing villains in television history, the demonic force behind the murder of Laura Palmer that launched an entire show built around one unanswered question. Here's the part that still catches people off guard. Nobody ever auditioned anyone to play him because the character didn't exist yet when filming started. Frank Silva worked as a set dresser on the Twin Peaks pilot, nowhere near the cast, just part of the crew arranging furniture behind the camera. During a scene set in Laura Palmer's bedroom, a camera operator noticed Silva's reflection accidentally caught in a mirror and flagged it to David Lynch as a mistake that would need reshooting. Lynch looked at the footage, liked exactly what he saw, and made the choice to keep it in rather than reshoot around it. That single accident created Bob on the spot, and the same set dresser who'd been arranging furniture minutes earlier now stepped in front of the camera to play him. Silva went on to appear as Bob throughout the show's run, turning what should have been a blown shot into the identity of one of the most feared characters ever put on television, purely because David Lynch happened to like what a mistake looked like on film. Television's most nightmarish villain exists because of a mirror nobody was ever supposed to look into, and the man who became him wasn't even supposed to be on camera in the first place. Conclusion: 10 villains, 10 roles that almost belong to somebody else entirely, and every single one of these shows would look completely different today if even one of those decisions had gone the other way. Notice what actually connects these stories. A producer held out for a bigger name and got turned down anyway. A network overruled a creator's first instinct. A camera caught something nobody meant to film. None of these villains exist because a casting director had a perfect vision from day one. They exist because the first choice fell through, or the rules got bent, or somebody looked at an accident and decided to keep it instead of fixing it. Picture how different television looks without any of these near misses. Without Joan Collins as Alexis, primetime soaps might never have become the genre-defining phenomenon they turned into. Without Bob, Twin Peaks loses the exact image that still haunts people who saw it decades ago. And without Ian McShane, Deadwood might have starred Al Bundy in a 10-gallon hat instead. If you already knew one of these stories, drop a comment and tell us which one. And if there's a villain out there with a casting story we missed, let us know down below, because we're always digging for the next one. Thanks for watching. This is the Throwback Network, and I'll see you in the next one.